Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
Having, just to do like the elevator pitch for having network attached storage, having effectively unlimited storage is an incredibly powerful thing, because then it's the difference between getting rid of 90% of the raw photos that you shoot and keeping all of the raw photos that you shoot. Now, obviously, there's some caveats in that particular example, but you know what I mean. Having effectively infinite storage is extremely cool, because you don't have to worry, was that picture worth 100 megabytes? Was that video worth 6 gigabytes or whatever the case may be? Just screw it. Just keep it.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of iPad Pros. This episode continues on in the kind of paternity leave episodes as we welcome our new little one into this world. And so this episode will kind of continue on from the last episode, but this time I'm recording after the little one kind of surprised us and came a bit early. So some fun topics to cover this week, wide-ranging, and we dive into photography, baby accounts online, and some general father advice from our guest today, Casey Liss. You may know Casey from the Accidental Tech podcast, Analog, and a bunch of other podcasts that he has guested on, and he's spoken a bunch in the past about his journey as a father, and I want to chat with him about my new journey that I'm about to embark on.
With that said, a reminder that you can support this podcast over at patreon.com/iPadPros for as little as $1 a month, or directly in the Apple Podcasts app by subscribing either monthly or yearly. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and really does help with the production of the show, and I'm already starting to understand the true value of time as a new dad. So your support really does mean a lot. And thanks to everyone that currently or has in the past supported the show there.
Without further ado, here's my discussion with Casey. Enjoy. So welcome to the podcast, Casey.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired. So
yeah, geez, why?
Yeah. So I'm doing 2 maternity leave episodes. The last one I recorded before the little one came, and I thought, and we joked, that was with one of the hosts from the Apple Insider podcast, and he's expecting a little one any day now, and Andrew O'Hara, and I beat him to the punch by having an 8.5 week early delivery.
Well, congratulations. I know we were talking briefly before we started recording.
Yeah.
I got to imagine you're a little tired and a little stressed, but you're putting on the happy face very, very well.
Thank you. Yeah. The first week I was tired, but I didn't act like I was, kind of thing. Like I hadn't slept in 48 hours. It's like, I'm not tired.
Ugh.
I'm not tired at all.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, my
gosh,
family's like, you look exhausted too. Get some sleep. It's like
it happens. No, this is super, super exciting. I'm very, very excited for your whole family of 3 now, which is super cool. But no, I know you had planned and we had planned on this being like one of the few pre-baby shows, and now it's the first post-baby show.
Yeah.
I'm very honored that definitely not by circumstance. Definitely not. You absolutely planned it such that I would be the first post-baby episode. So I'm very, very excited.
yeah,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah. So slightly different thoughts probably in today's episode versus pre-baby and just like all speculation stuff. And now she's here.
Exactly.
And it's a whole different thing.
Do you want to, it's up to you, obviously, how much do you want to go through any of the birth story or anything like that? Or is that just for you guys? I don't know. If I feel like now is the time, if you wanted to share anything like that, or if you just want to say everyone's good, move right along, we can do that too. It's your show.
Yeah, I can share a bit. So I get home Saturday after like a 12-hour shift where I wasn't supposed to be out that long, but it was. And about to go to bed around 11:30, and my wife's like, we may need to go to the hospital. There's like a little bit of bleeding. And it's like, okay, that stuff's that can be normal, during a pregnancy. Yep. But we get there and they say, yeah, everything's fine. It's good you came. No signs of early labor. We get there around midnight. And some 40 minutes later, they're like, you're not going anywhere. They're going to transfer us to a different hospital for just different care to make sure everything's good. But the early signs of labor are happening, and she goes from not being dilated at all to within an hour being 10 centimeters.
Oh,
and,
my word. In an hour.
Yeah.
Holy
And I
jamales.
looked, Casey, at a little photo. She sent me a little pumpkin diagram of what the cutouts look like from 0 to 10. And
Yeah,
oh
you
my
don't wanna do
word.
that.
Yeah,
You
the
don't wanna do
pumpkin
that.
was the best way to see that, the little pumpkin cutouts. And oh my word, it's like
bananas.
that's a lot of room for yeah. So and evidently that was her water breaking at the house, but she had extra amniotic fluid, so they didn't really catch it. They like checked. It's like, oh, that's all the fluids there, and
Yeah.
so she was born 3:28 in the morning. We got there on midnight, so that was. And it was one
That's
of the
fast.
Yeah, it's very the doctor said this is the fastest we've seen from not being any dilated to like she's out, natural birth and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that is absolutely incredible. And I obviously, on behalf of the listeners, on behalf of me, on behalf of everyone, congratulations. And mom's doing well. The little one is doing well.
They're both
Everyone's
doing
okay.
great. And
Excellent.
yeah, we were transferred from that because we chose this hospital because it did have a NICU. But it didn't have one high enough level, so they transferred us to a different hospital via ambulance. So we had ambulance for the little one, ambulance for her, and then I followed in the car.
Wait, so you had a caravan of 2 ambulances and you?
Yes.
Were they going lights and sirens, or were they just driving?
They were just. I actually don't know because I was. She was separated, so I had to ask her about that.
Okay,
but I made a pit stop at the house on the way to the second hospital because totally unprepared, didn't have our go bags ready, so got some chargers and some things on the way.
Whoopsie-doopsies.
Yeah,
See, you gotta live the go bag life, my friend. That's what you got to do. You have to have it always available, no matter what. No matter what, you never know what'll happen. As it turns out.
As it turns out, yeah, I've discovered what can kill a 14 Pro Max, and that's not charging it for 23 hours and using it for photography all night long.
That'll do it. Now, to go back a half step, a confession I probably shouldn't share is that, I am a car enthusiast. I like to, although as I get older and older, I do less and less of it. I like to drive quickly. And there's like a little sliver of me that really wants a legitimate excuse to drive like a maniac.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, oh, there's an ambulance with one of my family members in it. Don't want that. Would prefer not that.
Right.
But if
I can
we're in
follow.
this situation, then I get to like follow them, like, hazards on, driving like an idiot. And that's like my dream. Well, not the ambulance part.
Yeah.
The excuse, just
The
having
excuse.
a legitimate excuse is like
Absolutely.
my dream come true. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked earlier about the lights and sirens, because I can just imagine. Of course, then again, you'd probably look to everyone around you like an ambulance chasing lawyer or something like that, with your flashers on, your hazards on, just trying to chase down the car crash victim or whatever. Maybe this fantasy is something I should have kept to myself. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that the little one is doing well. Mom is doing well. You, again, sound like you're doing extremely well for not having slept in the last 3 days for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So I am quite pleased that we are sharing this time together. And I was when we exchanged emails last night, I was just making sure that what the plan was for today. And you said, "Oh, by the way, the baby was born." and I said to you, "Are you sure you want to do this right now?" You said, "No, it's fine. So here we are. But if you just keel over and pass out in the middle of the recording, I won't be offended. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there to a degree. I haven't been there with the NICU and the whole rigmarole. But no offense taken if suddenly you decide it's nap time for me and the show just stops. So listeners, if the outro is not as deft as usual, that's what babies do to you, and we're going to probably talk a little bit more about that, or maybe a lot more about that in the next few minutes.
So she arrived 4.3 pounds and 18 inches long.
So tiny.
Which I guess is big for her age. So she came 8.5 weeks early, so it's decent size, but still the lungs and stuff aren't fully developed. So so it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but she has all the right care and all the right tools to make sure she grows up full and gives mom time to physically recover before we bring her home, and it really puts a fire under your butt for getting the house in proper order.
Yeah, indeed it does. Indeed it does. Now, what is the approximate timeline for the little one coming home? Do we have any
another 7 weeks or so? They say around the due date is when you should expect, and anything earlier is bonus. So December 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Golly, so you're gonna have like all month with the little one in the hospital, and,
Yes.
and your wife presumably is coming home soon-ish. I would guess.
She's already home, and we're sleeping at home and coming there and spending the day there as much as my work allows, and she's off for maternity leave now. So, yep, she's.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So, do you just hang out in like a hospital waiting room, or does like the NICU have a special area for you to go and chill in?
The NICU has like chairs next to her little enclosure thing that we can stay at. Yeah.
So it's not. So she, I guess the baby has to some degree her own little bespoke area, maybe not an entire room, but an area, and you can just hang. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I got to hold her for 2 nice sessions yesterday, 3 hours to start, and then another 2-hour session.
Awesome.
So I got a lot of time holding. Yeah, that's the first time, and that was really special. I looked out; she's just so small. It's like
I know. I mean, that's true even with I don't mean this to be flippant, but it's true even with like a fully formed baby.
Yeah.
But in your case, it's like super true that she is itty bitty.
And she's very feisty. She likes to grab all the cords and stuff, and like, don't grab that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. Holding your kid, your first kid in particular, but holding any kid for the first time, it's just it blows your entire world out. Everything's upside down.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that I love my children more than my wife, but it is a very, very, very different and just as powerful kind of love that I mean, there's just no way. Like, how do you know what it's like to be married before you're married? Like, you can live with somebody for a long time, but I would argue it's still a little bit different. How do you know what it's like to be a dad or a mom before you're holding your own kid in your arms? Like, it's just, it completely turns everything upside down. And suddenly, I can't think of a specific example, but like long held beliefs about maybe work or whatever, they're just all of a sudden just gone. Like everything, work, I don't care. What's work? Whatever. It doesn't matter. I got this now. This is my world now. And and it's super cool and super exciting. It's funny too. I feel like, I don't know if it's just in the water or what, but my brother-in-law, Aaron, my wife Aaron's brother, they just had their first in August. I believe it was early August. I recorded a podcast with my friend Max, and he just had his first like 2-3 weeks ago. Now I feel like babies are in the water right now. Like everyone's popping out all of a sudden, which is super exciting. Do you have any friends that are nearby that are also having babies or had babies recently?
No, actually. Yeah, nothing super recent. Yeah, a couple years ago, but yeah.
Okay. So you've seen some of this already then. I bring this up in part because, our kids are almost 8. He'll be 8 at the end of the month and 4.5 at this point. And so I remember the baby stage, or at least I think I do. But
I should interrupt. My neighbor across the street actually is pregnant. We don't know them super well, but she's due any week now as well. So there will be a neighbor that's a similar age, which is great.
Yep. See, and you can be the tutor for that neighbor, right?
Yes.
But no, I remember baby stage, or I think I do. I think our minds are programmed not to remember a lot of it, particularly the no sleeping part, because otherwise you'd never have a second child.
Exactly.
But I feel like I remember the baby stage, and it feels like both yesterday and 4 or 8 years ago, right? It's so wild that I happen to be looking through old pictures of Declan briefly, just because that happened to be the time that I was looking through photos. It was like 2015, and he was about a year at that point, and I remember him being that little. But like he rides the bus to go to second grade now, like, and it's hard to reconcile that this is the same human, and obviously it is, but it's weird thinking about like this is the same kid that I was like burping and walking around in circles for hours at night, and now he's like telling me about Pokemon and all the different Pokemon that he loves and this and that and the other thing. It's just it's such a cliche thing to say, but particularly right now for you. The days last forever. The days are 30 to 40 hours per day. It's just they last forever. But you blink and the little one will be in second grade. Like it's just it's bananas. And I know you haven't explicitly asked for advice, but the number one thing that everyone will tell you, and I will reiterate, is be there and pay attention, because I kid you not, It doesn't feel like it. I know it doesn't feel like it. But you are going to blink, and suddenly, she's going to be sitting up. Then you're going to blink again. She's going to be talking. You're going to blink again, and she'll be feeding herself, and you're blink again, and she's getting married. It's like ridiculous. So that is my number one piece of advice: is just be there and be present, and just be aware. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm so bad at like not being in the moment, but like looking around and thinking to myself, like this is a thing. This is an event. This is a moment that is happening that I'm going to want to remember, especially in the mundane stuff. Like you remember it at Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, but you don't remember it as much when you're just goofing off on the floor with the kids, or when you're holding her. Well, maybe you're holding her for the first time. That's pretty obvious. But when you're holding her for the 15th time and you're exhausted, but you look down and you're like, holy crap, I made this. Like the two of us made this. Yeah. And that moment is the one you really just got to try to lock in and like pay attention to and hold on to, because they're fleeting in the best possible way, because especially at this age, the baby is changing every minute. And so you just got to hold on, man.
Yeah. Look at photos from her birthday a week ago, and I can already see the growth. It's kind of wild seeing just a week. And because of how she was positioned, I couldn't feel any kicks. Like there was a barrier there. Okay. So I never had any, so she's very, very real. I saw the growth and like, the baby bump, I mean, and I would see him in the,
you see words, man.
Words
just leave. They just leave.
In the ultrasound, I could see her in the ultrasound, and those were very. But seeing her out, it's a different experience. Yeah,
it is unbelievable. So what's been obviously there's been a lot more turmoil for you than you intended, than the two of you all intended. But what's been, other than obviously just holding her, what's been your favorite so far?
I mean holding her, but
I mean that's the obvious answer, right?
Yeah, I mean. Just staring at her. Being a photographer, dad. Like just like let me edit this and like share it. And,
I totally hear you. Do you feel like she clearly resembles either of her parents at this point, or no?
It's funny. I pulled up a hospital photo for me, and side by side, it's like I don't know how close babies look in general, but she looked pretty close to me, and they're.
I mean, it's all babies are aliens, like nobody tells you, but there are very few like genuinely good looking babies in the world. They're all just little squish aliens. Yeah. And in your case, like a little itty bitty squish alien. And so, I mean, obviously, I thought my kids were adorable, but I'm hugely biased. And in reality, they were just aliens, like every other alien.
Yeah, it's funny. The original, like from the delivery room photos, looks very alien. The eyes are big and just dull. Pupil are and when you're born at that age, they put you in a little what I call ET bag, the little plastic bag to keep you warm.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
legitimately alien like.
Yep. And just seeing my wife hold her is just really special too. And
I don't know why. I guess it was my brother-in-law when he and his wife had their baby in August. It occurred to me again, I hadn't thought about it in a long time, like how wild is it to be someone who is carrying the baby, and who is growing the baby, and signing up for, well, I might need to have an emergency surgery in about 9 months, or maybe I'm going to be effectively broken in half over sometime about 9 months from now. Like, I should just speak for myself, but like I'm not signing up for that. Like, no, I am way too much of a baby for that. Our better halves are our better halves for every reason under the sun. And I can't fathom how stressful an experience carrying and then especially birthing a baby must be. And to have any human sign up for that and be like, yes, I'll take one. So, and in some cases, I'll take that 2, 3, 4, 5 more times.
Yeah,
I just can't.
The pain tolerance is just like, wow.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, to this day, if I like stub my toe and I'm fussing and whining about it, and Aaron is like, really? This is what you're getting upset about? Really? So our wives are the best. It's just, it's unreal. Anyway, so anything else that you wanted to say? I'm sorry, I'm bogarting your entire show, but I love
all
babies.
Good.
And so, what else? Is there anything else you wanted to share about the birth story? You said you and your wife are going most days and doing what you can to be with her, and everything seems okay.
Yeah, no, it's they're they're starting to limit the number of guests that we can have because of the flu season coming. So less family will be able to see her until she's out, which I get it, but it's going to be hard for some of the nearby folks.
Yep. I can understand that. Do you have your parents and or your in-laws that are physically close to you?
In-laws. My parents are far away, and they'll be coming in the winter when she's home and good.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, at least you have in-laws close by. It's super helpful to have any of your parents around. Also sometimes hurtful if they're anything like any other grandparent I've ever met, because they've been there and they know a lot of the things that you don't know, but oftentimes, like both my parents and my in-laws were very well-meaning, but would oftentimes like fluff off things that I was super stressed about because I'd never done it before. Right?
Yeah.
And so I can't think of a specific example, but I don't know, like, oh, the baby hasn't pooped in like 3 hours. And they're like, yeah, but it hasn't pooped in 3 hours. And this, because a first-time parent, you're like, oh my God, you're living and dying by like excrement and urine, especially early on. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd care.
My parents are both pediatricians, so we have a
that makes it both better and
phone
worse.
Call to said, yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. That's actually got to be very helpful.
It is. So we've been texting and calling as needed.
Yeah. I'm surprised they aren't like banging at the doors to get. I mean, obviously, if they live far away, there's nothing they can do. But it's just must be killing them that they're so far away and not able to like come and help and smush the baby and stuff.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But that is nice having a 24/7 like phone a friend available if you have any questions. Especially since I'm sure they've seen it all. Like they have seen everything. I am quite confident. Yeah. Oh, that's super exciting. All right, so what are we actually here to talk about? I mean, I could talk babies for the rest pretty much for the rest of my life, but what are we actually here to discuss?
So, I've got the 7 weeks. What are the things that the house should be like when you brought home your little ones? Were there things in the house you're like, oh, I wish I did that before they came? And
yeah, that's a good question. The nice thing is early on, they're just little mushes that just sit, right?
Yeah, they don't run around yet.
They don't run around. And so this is like the easy stage in a way. I know it doesn't sound like, trust me, it doesn't feel like the easy stage right now, but in some ways it is. Once they get mobile and start crawling, then you have to start worrying about like not only where you set them, but are they still there? You know, it's a weird mode change to go from this person will always be exactly where I leave them to, oh my God, where is the baby? Like, even if it's in the house, like, still, where did the baby go? And so what I'm saying is you have more than 7 weeks in that regard. But
yeah,
I mean, I think simple and silly things are nice to do ahead of time rather than under duress. So silly stuff like outlet covers, not going to be an issue for a long time, but still nice to take care of when you have a little more leisurely time to do so. If you're going to put up baby gates, like, you had mentioned that you're recording from a basement, which implies that there are stairs somewhere in the house.
Yes.
If the stairs don't have doors in front of them, then baby gates may not be a terrible time or terrible thing to worry about. And again, you don't need it now. You won't need it for a few months in all likelihood, but maybe handle it now rather than under duress when suddenly the baby is walking and you didn't expect it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think the most obvious things are, where does the baby sleep? Where does the baby get changed? And where does the baby eat? And in a lot of ways in the infant stage, so much of that is just wherever it's sitting, right?
Yeah.
It'll eat where it's sitting. It'll poop where it's sitting. It'll get changed where it's sitting. But no, I think getting those staging areas ready, and it's silly stuff. I don't know how much you listen to Merlin Mann's shows, but Merlin talks a lot about, like, when he's in the kitchen, he likes to have things like accessible within arm's reach. And so, like, especially when it comes to changing, like having the diaper pail and the diapers and the wipes, like all within arm's reach, wherever that may be. That might be in your kitchen table. It might be in like a bespoke changing area, whatever. But just having that all like squared away and ready to rock is I think the most obvious solution or thing to work on. And then just getting ahead of it, because for better and for worse, especially this early, everything changes, and it changes in the blink of an eye. And so, you have less time than you think to worry about toddlering, and then less time than you think to worry about like walking, or crawling, and then toddlering and walking and whatnot. So that's what I would say is just try to conquer the stuff that you can think of now, and expect that everything you do what is it like? No plan survives, or I forget the turn of phrase. It's so clever, but or no plan survives contact with the enemy, or something like that. But if basically once she comes home, you're going to throw everything out the window anyhow. But but trying to get a hand on things and silly stuff. Another great example is like cleaning bottles. Like there's many different schools of thought about cleaning bottles and what to do about that. And I would try, do whatever you want to do or need to do to try whatever options you have for cleaning bottles. So some people are super particular about boiling them in the stove, on the stove. Some people, what we ended up backing into is they make these little Ziploc, they're not Ziplocs, but they're kind of sort of Ziploc pouches.
Yeah.
And that's what we favored, because you just put the bottle in paraphernalia in there and put in a couple ounces of water, and then you zip it shut. Yep. And then you nuke it for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it says on the bag, and then suddenly everything's sanitized because it's all been boiled in there. And that's what we liked. But maybe you prefer having a seafood boil, shrimp boil size pot where you're doing 85 bottles at once. I mean, whatever you prefer. I think getting ahead of those sorts of immediate needs and doing a dry run now and figuring out what the two of you prefer as best you can, I think that's a good use of your time at the moment when you're not there snuggling her.
Yep, for sure. And we have a cat, so we're navigating keeping the bottles away from where a cat would like to play with them and all that.
Yeah, what drawer or what cabinet can be sacrificed for bottle stuff so the cat doesn't get in there. Do you have to, when it comes to cats, I am not a cat person, but do you have to do the whole bring a piece of clothing home and let the cat sniff it sort of thing? I know that's something that people with dogs will do.
We're not sure yet. We need to research that. To begin, she won't be in the same room as the little one, just because we've heard horror stories of cats sleeping on top of babies' heads and stuff. So
oh goodness, that's
so
not good.
The cat won't be in with the little one for some time. Is our plan.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, again, I know cats are a very different animal, figuratively and literally, than dogs, but I've heard many people say, you take a swaddle that the baby was in and you bring it home for the dog to sniff. We do have a dog now, but we didn't until just a year or two ago, so this was way post-baby for us, and we didn't have to worry about any of that sort of stuff.
Our dog knew something was up. She would follow my wife around the house all day long once she was pregnant. She didn't do that before. And she definitely knows. She definitely knows. Yeah. Our cat was clueless, except for the day before our cat rested her paw on her belly, which was a very acute thing. But
that's super
otherwise, awesome. She was pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense. No, I think just stage what you can and understand, and it's okay that all three of you are learning. And I was talking to my friend Max on his show that there's a lot of things that they don't tell you, and it sounds like you guys may or may not end up breastfeeding on account of the fact that she was so early. But a silly example is nobody tells you that breastfeeding is super hard for the baby and the mom, and so everything is hard right now. Living is hard for all three of you right now. So whatever plan you come up with, as I suggest, with your baby changing area, whatever, you're going to throw it out the window. That's fine. That's totally okay. just it'll make, if you're anything like me, it'll make you feel better to have some sort of a game plan.
Yeah.
But then,
be adaptable.
Whatever. Be adaptable. Yeah, that's so true.
So, baby tech.
Yes.
Was there anything you had for round 1 with Declan that with round 2 with Michaela, you added 4 years later? Oh, I actually want this for infant time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there really was. The funny thing about my experience, and I think most people's experience with kids, is that you go off the deep end with the first one. Everything is as super controlled as can be because you've never done it before. You don't know better. And you assume somewhat rightly that the entire world is intent on murdering your new child. That is the point of the entire world, is to murder your child. If your parents or your in-laws don't wash their hands for exactly 30 seconds before touching the baby will die. And
I can say my hands are already starting to crack through all the hand washing that is required.
I am a big fan of Cetaphil, Cetaphil, or maybe it's FIL, I forget. But anyways, that's a hand lotion I prefer. It works wonders.
Yeah.
But anyways, you realize with the second kid, the first one was fine. All that stuff we worried about, it didn't friggin' matter. It's fine. They'll be fine. And so the second kid is more of okay, these are the things that we're keeping from the first one, rather than I totally understand the premise of the question. It makes sense, but it's more of like what sticks around rather than like what new addition do we have. And I think the things that stuck around, I don't know, we reused a lot of the same like diaper pail and changing pad and things of that nature. We were, or Declan was, and then Michaela less so, but also we're really big fans of being swaddled. So if you think about it from the baby's perspective, you know, they've been like curled up for 9 months or whatever. In your case, 7 or 8 months. And so a lot of times, a lot of babies, they really prefer when they're sleeping to be like, you know, squeezed up really tight. And I was reflecting on a couple of blog posts I wrote when Declan was little. And one of them is entitled Toddler Stuff We Use, and the other one is entitled Baby Stuff We Use. I guess I should have done that in reverse order. But anyway, in the Baby Stuff We Use, I'm looking over here, and there's a picture of Declan in like a little burrito, as we call it. And that's like his little sleep sack is what it was. You know? So it like holds him, squeezes him tight. And they really liked that. And we kept with that for Michaela. We had a really crummy baby tracking app, which we used. I believe it's called Baby Connect. It was functional, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I've had a lot of people say, I thought you had mentioned it to me, a Mango Baby?
Yeah, Baby Mango is what we're using.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
It's great.
I've heard a lot of people say very, very good things about it, and I've heard it's excellent. So that would probably, I mean, having not used it, that would probably be my recommendation.
Yeah, it's the first app I've seen that uses the new iOS 16 collaboration feature where iCloud collaboration. So that's been cool. So we're using it now to track pumping and measuring all that, and it will expand out the diapers and all that. And it has like shortcut support. So I have an app icon I can hit it. That's like a diaper icon, and it has like a menu. It's like, what kind of diaper is it? So there's it's very well done. Yeah.
That is super awesome. No, I've heard very, very good things. And so like the baby tracking, we found it extremely useful for Declan, again, because we didn't know what we were doing. With Michaela, we used it for a little while, and then we're kind of like, well, has she peed? Has she pooped in the last, day? Oh, yes, then she's fine. Whereas with Declan, it was like, it's been 14 minutes. He hasn't peed, and it's been 2 hours, and he hasn't pooped. And so it's first parents, man.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to go through it. Like you can't be even whether or not you want to, you can't get to being a second parent or a second time parent until you've been through all the lunacy of the first time parent.
Yeah.
So it's just par for the course. But to directly answer your question, no, I don't think there's anything that we added for Michaela that's significant or noteworthy. I think it was just, like I said, what stuck around, and it was mostly sleep sacks, bottles, bottle sanitization, baby tracking, that sort of thing.
Yeah. For your like diaper go bag, anything out of the ordinary that you keep in there?
That's a great question. I don't think that we had anything unusual. Obviously, changes of clothes. This is doubly relevant in infant stage because then they'll have blowouts and they'll poop all over themselves unintentionally. And then in the toddler stage, it's relevant because they're, climbing through mud, and you don't want to be that dad or mom that's like, no, stop it. But you also don't necessarily want to put them in your car full of mud. So, I think having Ziplocs is often helpful, or something. Yeah. Well, Ziplocs for both clothes and diapers, or a lot of times people will do like a doggy poop bag dispenser, but for diapers. Yeah. Obviously, having that is very nice because putting a pee diaper in just about anyone's trash is not a big deal, but putting a poop diaper in someone's trash, that's asking a little bit more. And so in terms of like, how offensive it is to your nostrils. And so having some sort of containment, be it a Ziploc or a bespoke bag or whatever the case may be, in order to put a poop diaper, I think is just courteous. Snacks for mom, dad, and baby. I think having snacks in there is really a good idea. Another thing I think is very useful, and this is relevant even for kids my age, but obviously the particular mechanism of accomplishing this is different, is having something to entertain potentially the adults, but particularly the kids, if you're suddenly somewhere for more time than you expect. So that could be like a toy for the kid to play with. It could be like a little Frisbee or something, or like a ball, something that, we are suddenly in a traffic jam, or we're suddenly at the doctor's office for an hour and a half when we didn't expect to be. Can we entertain the kid for a while?
So one thing I'm considering doing is setting up an iCloud account and possibly a Google account. The iCloud account, that's been fun to try to manage because I can't like change accounts on my phone. The idea is I kind of want to add to her photo library like cards that are addressed to her with messages and like, well, did Did you do any of this? Like, did you have accounts set up when they were itty bitty? And
I think I did for Declan, and then just never looked at it again. Which I'm not advocating is the correct answer, but I love the idea, and I still could do it, but I haven't. I love the idea of setting up some sort of a repository for the kid where you can drop things. The problem, though, is that kid isn't going to care about that until they're like a grown-up. And so like even when they're 15, 18, whatever the case may be, they're probably not going to care about baby pictures. You know, it's not until they're like 25, 30, 35, 40 that they're going to suddenly start caring about the baby pictures and this and the other thing. So I really love the idea. I don't personally think it's necessary to set up like accounts necessarily, or perhaps, you know, if you were to do so, I would position it more as this isn't going to eventually become their primary account or anything like that. It's just that this is my repository for sticking notes to future little one, you know, or whatever the case may be. Which also kind of takes a little bit of pressure off you to have everything perfect from the get-go, right? You know, it's you can make it work in however way you want. And if that's a repository on a network attached storage, if it's an iCloud account, if it's a Google account, if it's some combination of all three, I think that's perfectly reasonable and perfectly fine. I don't think, though, you have to set your not your priorities, your expectations right, because I think collecting all of this is a great idea, but I would argue it is more for you and your wife than it is for the kid. Yeah. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, set those expectations appropriately, because I would love to have had all that for myself now at 40. I'm not sure I would have cared before I was like 30. And so, so you have to just set those expectations with yourself appropriately. But I love the idea of it. I don't know if I would personally choose Google for that, although I could make a compelling reason why you would want to. But
I generally don't use Google for anything.
Right, exactly.
But the one thing was like, do we secure the Google account so we have the good email address if her name becomes more popular over the years?
Right.
And that's the thing we didn't have to worry about when we were kids. Like, internet was still new. Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, reserving accounts, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing at all. I think that can be very helpful. And again, like domain names potentially, if you really care that much. But yeah, in terms of storing stuff, I would say store it however you want. That's good for you, because ultimately this is more for you than it is for the kid. Even though it looks on the surface like it's for the kid, it's more for mom and dad than it is for her. Yeah. So,
and then I guess we should jump to photography a bit. And I'm really glad the 14 Pro came out with it when it did. like we got day one orders, and if it had been delayed past that, we probably wouldn't have had it in time. And my wife's jumping up from an iPhone 11, and I'm jumping up from a 12 mini. So this is the first time we both had the 3X lens, and now we have 2X. And I was just blown away with the kind of shots we got. And my wife's mom was in at the delivery room, so that freed me up a bit to do some more photography during labor and stuff. And I'll tell you, Casey, that 0.5 lens and like the photonic engine, like it was capturing some great shots, even in the light conditions. Like, because I can't back up, but so far when I'm in there, so it's like I got some. I'm just blown away what the iPhones can do these days.
Yeah, you know, I have a somewhat complicated relationship with photography in that I want to be better at it than I am. I want to do more of it than I do, and those are related. But ultimately, I'm not too fussy when it comes to the pictures that I take, and I think it's better for it, you know. So I say this because any person with any amount of taste will tell you that the ultra wide shots are not great. Yeah. But I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, that an ultra wide shot that is maybe artistically or academically not stupendous, but captures the entirety of the scene you're trying to capture, is a much better shot than one that doesn't accomplish what you were setting out to accomplish, right? Yeah. And so it is nice to get maybe a 1X shot of a portion of the scene, but if you're trying to get the entire scene, just let that let that 0.5 fly, baby. Like, what's it gonna hurt? And I've never looked back at a photo I've taken and been or maybe I shouldn't say never, but it's extremely rare that I'll look back at a photo I've taken and been like, well, I really wish I'd done this done it differently in this way, that way, or the other way. Like, I'm just happy that I have the damn shot,
Yeah.
And so, I would say, yeah, the 14 Pro is really preposterously good, and I haven't had the time to like properly mess with ProRes, and I'm a really terrible photo editor. It's something I want to work on, is getting better at editing photos. The limits of my editing skills are basically adjusting white balance, and that's about all I can do. But I do want to muck about with, editing the photos and trying to bring colors in directions I want them to go, or bringing shadows in or out, or whatever the case may be. But when Declan was born, we had just bought an Olympus Micro Four Thirds camera with, I think, 1, maybe 2 lenses. And then when Michaela was born, we basically got an upgraded camera body, but it was the same lenses, same everything else. And now I find myself reaching for that camera very rarely, which I think is a testament to how good the iPhone is, a testament to my laziness. And also, I think something that I need to fix, I think I need to do better about grabbing the big camera for day-to-day stuff. And I think that maybe that's part of what it is that when you're at, -7 weeks old, if you think about it, everything is monumental. When you're 7 weeks old, everything is monumental. When you're a year old, everything is monumental. But once you hit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, a lot of it's just day to day, and that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's less, or there's fewer moments where you think, oh, wait, I got to grab the camera, because this is a seminal point in this child's life, and so because of that, I'm more willing to just grab the iPhone, just snap a quick shot, and walk away, so to speak. Also, the iPhone, this is particulars of my setup, but the iPhone actually does better in low light than the big camera does. Like in anything other than sunshine. In sunshine, the big camera blows the iPhone out of the water. Like you get honest to goodness bokeh. You can. I have a really great zoom. Well, I mean, to me, it's really great. Maybe a photographer would tell you it's garbage, but to me, it's a really great zoom lens. You can get shots with the big camera that maybe you wouldn't get with the iPhone. But as soon as you move indoors, the big camera like if it's indoors, like we're recording this in the morning time, if it's indoors, like right now, the big camera can do okay. If it's indoors in like dusk or evening, forget it. Like it's not even worth grabbing the big camera, because the iPhone, and I think you alluded to this earlier, the computational photography is so good that I'm going to get way better shots out of the iPhone indoors at dusk, or even outdoors at dusk than I am out of the big camera. I don't know. This is my experience.
The low light stuff. Yeah, it's so true. Like I've, and we have a fancy camera now. It's like a $700 mirrorless Sony camera.
Nice.
I got like a 30 millimeter f1.4 lens that goes with it from Sigma, and it's a reasonably priced lens. And I took the first shot with it yesterday of the little one, and I was blown away. It's like, oh, that's really nice. The natural bokeh, and
Yep.
And then
you understand what portrait mode is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
And in the defense of portrait mode, it has gotten way better since the iPhone 10 or whatever it was that it debuted with. It is a reasonable facsimile for non-discerning people. So
it's gotten so much better over the years too.
It absolutely has. And I'll bust out portrait mode from time to time if I think the shot warrants it. In fact, we were at a football game this past weekend, and Michaela wanted to say, my wife is an alumnus of the University of Virginia, which is just a little ways away from us, and we have season tickets to their football games. And the way the stadium works is part of the stadium is like a big hill, like big grass hill. And Michaela wanted to sit on the hill with me. And so we were sitting on this grassy hill at the football stadium. And so we're facing the field. And Michaela was resting her head on my legs. And so I was like, oh, that's a really great shot. And I don't have my big camera with me at a freaking football game. So what did I do? I put on portrait mode. And again, like at a glance, it's a solid picture. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm saying the phone did a good job of taking what it could, making a decent like fake bokeh out of it. And it is not as good as the big camera would have been. But given that the best camera you have is the one that's next to you, it was pretty good. But one of the things I would recommend, a couple of things actually with regard to photography and babies. Yeah. First of all, just take a zillion shots. Like it's not going to hurt anything. You're going to have to store them somewhere somehow, and that can be hurtful, painful. But take a zillion shots. Even if you weed 90% of them out, just take a zillion shots. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm still bad at is I don't take enough video. I do take some, don't get me wrong. And Erin, my wife, is much better about this than me. but take video of
Yeah.
even dumb stuff. Like I can't stress enough. I know I said this a minute ago, but like capture the boring day to day, because that's the stuff that keeps you that keeps you going in a way, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's that is worth capturing too. It's not just birthdays and holidays and whatnot. Capture the boring day to day. Capture the kids sitting on the ground playing with something. You know, capture the cat or the dog interacting with her. You know, capture those things, because you'll be happy with them. And every once in a while, you'll kind of fart out a really amazing picture capturing something that you wouldn't think is worth capturing in the first place. But yeah, take video. Use the big camera. Don't be like me. Use the big camera when you can, and if you can, and take video. That's the one regret I have, is we have video for sure, but we don't have as much as I wish I did. And take more video than you think. Be that on the phone, be that on the big camera, whatever. But take video. Take more video than I did. Learn from my mistakes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of taking like short 30-second videos, because like it's not going to eat a bunch of space, and you get more than just the photo gives you.
Although I will say that like live photos, which I think was shortly after Declan was born, like having that to me, I think John, my co-host on ATP, John Syracuse, I believe he said he typically does not enable it, and I find that like barbaric. Like maybe I'm misspeaking.
Yeah, my thing in my head is I'm now doing Pro Raw or live. That's the equation. Do I want this for a big edit job, or do I want the live data? And that's a equation I like swapping between the two. And
And to me, I choose live photos 99% of the time, because I'd rather either have the ability to edit, like switch which is the key photo, I think Apple calls it. You know, because maybe I was just a half second late on the shutter, but the live photo was able to grab a still, you know, where I wanted it, and I can go in after the fact and like forensically dig up the one I want. But also, just a lot of times, kids move. Even at -7 weeks, kids move, and so it's fun to capture that movement. And it's like, I know Harry Potter's a little troubling these days, but it's like the photos in the paper in Harry Potter, right? Like seeing them move a little bit. It's just, it's amazing. It's bananas. And so to my eyes, I would take a live photo almost every time. And the only time I'd worry about ProRes or Pro Raw, whatever it is, Pro Raw is when I'm like setting out deliberately to like take a photograph. You know what I mean? And otherwise, if I'm
one
just taking
that
a picture,
you want to edit and make like just stunning.
Exactly. Like a portrait, like a posed portrait or something along those lines, or a landscape, then bust out ProRes. Pro Raw. I always get it back.
ProRes is the video thing.
Right. Bust out Pro Raw for that. Otherwise, just leave live photos on, man. You're going to miss stuff otherwise. You got to do it.
Yeah. And something I was looking into newborn photography. Did you ever do this where like your wife has like a white sheet over her so the baby thinks she's still like, because I guess they fuss if they're not like being held sometimes. So that was one trick I heard. Yeah.
We never had to do that. I mean, our kids had fussy moments. Don't get me wrong, but they were usually content long enough to get like a quick shot or two. And especially you learn that like either there's particular times of day that they tend to be more fussy than not. You'll find a witching hour at some point or another. But also, if they're freshly fed, usually they'll shut up for a little while. And so, that's the time when you do your portrait session, if you will. But we didn't ever have to go to that length. And ultimately, I think it's useful to have a handful of like posed, bespoke portraits of the baby. But I don't even like school pictures, which are arguably some of the best, like posed concrete.
Yeah, that's your documented year to year, like
exactly. But it's not. I don't look to school pictures for things that make me happy. I look to them running in the yard or whatever, or when they were babies. Like one of my favorite pictures is what we did. Which, I mean, everyone does something like this, it seems, these days. But we had a whiteboard, a small whiteboard, maybe, I don't know, a couple of sheets of paper big. And we would write, like, Declan or Michaela Liss, and, I'm 2 weeks old, and this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I enjoy, and blah, blah, blah. And we would just handwrite it. It was nothing fancy. And we would sit it next to the kid and take a picture, and we would, like, prop them up in the corner of the couch so they could actually, like, keep their heads upright, because when they were infants, and then eventually they would sit up. But one of my favorite shots of Declan, we were doing our weekly picture, we did it weekly then, and we've mostly fallen off this bandwagon now as they're both older. But anyways, we were doing the weekly pictures. I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 months old. And I just so happened to, and I did this with the big camera, and I just so happened to snap a shot as he like spit up on himself. So there's like this this mountain of like breast milk all over his chest, and he's just sitting there like, yeah, what of it? And it's just like one of my favorite pictures. It's so ridiculous and silly, and you would. Again, like academically, that's a terrible shot. Like I think it might have been out of focus. He's literally to the degree that an infant can vomit. He's vomited on himself, and like it's such a terrible shot academically, but I love it, and it's such a funny and silly shot, and that's what you're trying to enable, right? By taking a million pictures, by taking videos, by having live photos, you're trying to enable those serendipitous moments where it just kind of clicks in both the literal and the figurative sense. And so you can never take too many pictures. You can save too many pictures, but you can never take too many pictures.
Yeah, I've been going through the process of going past years and finally weeding through, because back then I didn't care about saving everything. Like I saved everything, just didn't weed through anything. Right. So I've been going through and deleting just tons of just crap shots. It's like, this feels really good. I probably won't have time to do this for much longer.
Yep, that's very, very true. And I mean, obviously, the more pictures you take, the more this becomes a problem in terms of storage, especially if you're using like a cloud service like iCloud or something like that. So, what I typically do is I will take a gazillion shots and I will try to weed through them and throw away the ones that aren't worth it. And actually, a recommendation that I will give, this is kind of apropos of not very much, but I cannot say enough good things about the app Day One.
Okay.
This is ostensibly like a diary app.
Yeah.
I think they would self-describe as a journaling app, but it's kind of a diary. But what I like about Day One is that, first of all, it can be like whatever you want it to be. It can be a logbook. It can be a photo album. It can be both of those things at the same time. But what I love about Day One is I have a really crummy memory, especially for day-to-day things. And like a week or two into the pandemic, the 2-week pandemic, right? So then it became the 4-week pandemic. Anyways, I thought, for this like month or two that we're locked at home, because it's only going to be a month or two, right? Right. But anyway, for this month or two that we're locked at home, why don't I try to capture like what we're doing? Because it'll be funny to look back on, right? Oh, how little do I know. But anyway, so I would I made a point of it every day to put something in Day One. I would try to put a picture in Day One, but something. And I have kept up with it for like 2.5 years now. And I would use Day One before, but I would only put in like big things, like big events or big milestones or something like that. So my Day One use is like maybe once or twice a month from about the time Declan was born until the pandemic, and it's not that there's nothing there, but it was only the big stuff. And by kind of forcing myself every day to sit down and think about what did we do today, I guess that is like the argument for journaling. It's so obvious when I say it out loud, but I never really thought of it that way. And by forcing myself to look at the day, what I'll end up doing is I'll go paging through my iPhone and look at the pictures I've taken that day, which, and what made me think of this, gives me a great excuse to cull and throw away the ones that are garbage, but also to save even just the littlest, teeniest snippet of what did we do today. And that can be as simple as like going out to eat. It can be as simple as, Declan really enjoyed playing with such and such ball, or Michaela really enjoyed coloring this or that, when they're little especially. But having something that you've noted either every day or every other day, whatever your particular schedule may be, is really, really nice. And what I love, and one of my favorite things to do every single day, is I wake up in the morning and I grab my phone, which is probably not healthy, but here we are. But the first thing I do on my phone is I'll open up Day One, and it has, as many things do, like a time hop style today in prior years. And I will look through, here's what we were doing last year. Here's what we were doing the year before that and the year before that. And you're kind of time traveling in reverse. And remembering not only the big stuff, like I remember going pumpkin picking, which we coincidentally did a year ago today, but I didn't remember other silly things that we did. And then you see that, and suddenly that memory comes like just this wave of that memory comes crashing back. And it's nice to be able to remember the mundane stuff. Now, maybe you have a much better memory than me, and you don't have to have like an offloaded place for it. I'm not trying to say that Day One is the only way to do this. You can do this any number of ways. But I really like having that excuse every evening, and I have a reminder every evening to do it, to sit down and think about what did I accomplish? Not accomplish, that sounds too back to work. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but what did I accomplish? Or what did the family accomplish? What did we do? How do we spend our time? And try to record that somewhere, because those memories are going to be precious. Oftentimes, the ones that you think are dumb end up becoming precious in future years. You just don't know it.
Yeah. Even probably, I'm thinking like silly fits that in the moment aren't so silly to you.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes I will capture things that aren't the most like rosy and flattering. Like this is an Instagram, like you can be real.
Yeah.
And part of the reason, again, I'm harping on day one, just because it's private, right? You know,
Right.
it's just for you. And so sometimes I'll capture like, you know, Declan and I got in a big fight, or, you know, Declan just did this that was really unfortunate, or I don't know, we got his first COVID shot and he did not handle it well. You know, sometimes you're capturing, or for me anyway, I like capturing real life. I don't like capturing Instagram life, you know, and Instagram life has its place. Don't get me wrong, but I like for day one or whatever your journal may be, I like capturing what really happened. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes you have good days. Sometimes you have not so good days, and that's part of life. And that's what makes life worth living, is having the good and the bad. And so I like capturing all of it, and I don't do the best job. I mean, I do better than no job, but I don't do the best job. But it is something that I wish I had done more of when they were little. Like I did some day one-ing, and I'm not trying to say you have to do it every day or anything. Find whatever works for you. But I wish I did a better job of chronicling the ins and outs of early life with the kids. Again, even the dumb stuff.
Yeah. Like today she pooped for the first time.
Yeah. Or you know, she pooped everywhere. Here's a photo of feces all over the room, you know, which sounds gross and silly.
Yeah.
But seriously, you can have a laugh about that. And just literally 48 hours ago, I was telling some friends of ours about a time that Declan had a just ridiculous blowout in a restaurant. And I was like, we were borrowing my parents' car at the time for uninteresting reasons. And so I'm like trying to change him in the car, and I've got poop all over my hands, and I'm a new dad, so I didn't like pre-stage the wipes like I was a rookie. I didn't think to get the wipes out first. So I got poop all over my hands. I'm like flinging poop onto like a bush in the parking lot off of my hand because I didn't have anything better to do. It was just a mess. And like, that is not a fun story, really.
No.
And I probably shouldn't have told your poor podcast listeners about it, but here we are.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it's a funny story that you get to laugh about, you know, years later. And even though at the time I was miserable, I hated my life, and I just wanted this kid to stop pooping up his back. Can you not just keep it in the diaper, please? But you know, but you look back on it and you kind of miss those days, as weird as that may sound.
Yeah. Something interesting about the live photo thing is in the hospital delivery room, I started taking a video once a little one came out, and they told me you can't do the video with the HIPAA rules, and they certainly don't. They
That's
didn't care
wild.
they didn't care about live photos, and they now stitched together. So if you take a bunch, it's kind of like a fake video in a way.
So wait, who are they? I don't mean this to be flippant.
Yeah.
Who are they protecting? By
I'm not
saying you can't take
exactly
video?
sure. Yeah, I'm not
That's
exactly
super
sure.
wild.
It was weird. We've been taking videos in the NICU, and like when they brought me one-on-one with her, I took one as they were measuring her and stuff. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
That's weird. I mean, maybe it's, I don't know if that's a particular hospital. Maybe things have changed in the last 4 years. But I mean, I have a video I'm pretty sure I set up an entire freaking tripod in the corner of the labor and delivery, or in the postpartum room.
Yeah.
And I recorded like 15 minutes of Declan meeting Michaela for the first time. And it was amazing. It was one of the coolest moments of my entire life. But
yeah.
I bring this up to say we just left this was the big camera too, so it's a
It was
big
obvious.
it's obvious. It's the point I'm driving
Yeah.
at. It's a big old camera on a big old tripod, and nobody blinked an eye. Like the nurse was part of this video; they didn't care. So that's super wild.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were me, because I'm a jerk, I would probably quietly be recording videos.
Yes.
When I wouldn't be recording other people. Like I
No.
wouldn't record the nurses if I could help
yes.
it. But the three of you, I would absolutely. Do
And
it
there was
whenever nobody's paying
there was a
attention.
great nurse that was like, being a little photographer, she'd grab my phone and have me in some of the
that's
shots.
awesome.
So that was very nice of her. Yeah.
That's super cool.
After the
nurses-
little one came, not during.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, of course. No, the nurses at our hospital were at the labor and delivery were just unreal. Like it is clear that they love their jobs and they're good at it. And I have a feeling that's not unique to the hospital that we went to. I think that most labor and delivery nurses are just amazing.
Yeah, they must have a passion for that kind of environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's because it's one of the most difficult days of everyone. Like even if things go perfectly, it's one of the most challenging days of everyone's life. Like nobody is having an easy day. Maybe you're having a good day, but you're not having an easy day. So no, they're incredible.
It
That's
felt like
awesome.
we had the whole floor in our room. There were 11 nurses and doctors.
I don't doubt it.
It was a wild
I don't
scene.
doubt it.
Yeah, so I have some great shots of just the room scene because it was something else.
And that's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who cares? You don't know who these doctors are.
No.
Maybe you do now, but you won't soon. But the fact that you have a shot of the pandemonium that was going on, like that is exactly what I'm trying to talk about. Is that having those dumb moments that like. It's one thing to say, oh, you wouldn't believe it. There's like 11 doctors. No, look, family. Look, friend. Look at all the doctors that were here. It's bananas. It's those silly moments that I think are worth capturing. And I try very hard to do a good job of capturing it. And I don't succeed that often, but I try. And that's what I can't recommend enough is capture those silly moments that seem inconsequential. I mean, obviously that maybe isn't inconsequential, but you know what I'm driving at, right? Like, that seem inconsequential and try to get those, even if it's a crappy shot, even if it's a garbage, blurry, ultra wide, low light piece of garbage shot, it's still better than nothing.
Yeah. And they had like team meetings before, so we're in the room and started doing a couple team meetings. Here's what's going to happen. It was cool. And one of the nurses, actually, that was like, she works at 2 hospitals. Her main hospital was where we're at now, but on our just random off day, she was there helping deliver, and then she's over in the other hospital now with us, which is that's a really cool thing. And she's in a couple of the shots. Yeah,
that's super awesome.
So, the big camera, this is a whole new world. It's my first real camera. Lenses. What lenses have been most useful for you over the years?
Yeah, so I only have 2, and I looked it up in advance because I knew you were going to ask me about this. So I have, and I can send you these links if you want. I have a Panasonic Lumix G Leica DG Semi-Lux lens, which basically it's a, what is it, f 1.4, I believe. It's a prime lens, so you can't zoom with it. It is. I bought this on the recommendation of my friend Sean Blanc, who has since gone like all in on Leica, which is unaffordable. But I'm jealous. He has like a Leica camera body, the whole rigmarole. But anyways, I love this lens because it can get super duper wide open. F1.4 is big, and it can take incredible shots. You have to be careful though, especially with f1.4, that your depth of field can be incredibly tiny. And something that I'm still learning as a photographer is I set the camera. I typically do aperture priority shooting. So I'm setting the aperture and letting everything else just be worked out. So I'll set the aperture like super wide, like f1.4 or something like that. And a lot of times if I'm not careful, particularly if I'm taking photos of more than one person, half of their faces or like the other person will be blurry because I've set the aperture so big and the depth of field is so short that I've ended up ruining the shot because I was so concerned about the bokeh that I didn't actually pay attention to the face in front of me. So I do love this lens, but you have to be mature with it, and I'm not the most mature shooter in that sense. You have to be able to rein yourself in and say, whoa, slow down on the f1.4. Maybe like an f2.4 or whatever is better here, or whatever the case may be. But that is my primary. Well, that's the lens I prefer to use. The lens I actually use is a zoom. I have a it's another Panasonic. It's a 35 to 100 millimeter, but that's based on Micro Four Thirds, I think. So I think it's actually like a 70 to 200 in like regular camera. In regular camera terms, I think I'm a very,
it's interesting. As I was looking at the lenses, is like I have to look how they look on my style camera versus the full bodies, which I don't have. It's like it's a different effect. Okay, this is
exactly.
Yeah.
So this one is a little bit of a zoom. It's enough that it gets me through most cases where I would want a zoom. And the thing is, especially once the kids are moving more, I tend to have this lens on more than the prime, even though the prime takes far better pictures.
Yeah.
And I do that partly because as soon as they know the camera's around, like sometimes they'll ham it up, but a lot of times they'll just like look at me and be like, dude, seriously. And so, and this is true of adults too, right?
Yeah, totally.
That you need to try to be kind of stealthy, and it's easier to be stealthy when you're not standing, within 3 or 4 feet of the person you're trying to take a photo of. So more often than not, I will end up using the zoom lens, which takes okay shots. I forget how wide this gets. It gets like 2.8, which is not terrible, but not stupendous. Like you can get some bokeh if you try and if you're in the right situation or whatever, but it's nothing like the prime. But I'll end up using it's again like you end up doing what works the best, even if it isn't academically the greatest option. And so in summary, that's many words to say, I think having one prime lens that takes really great photos, like just academically great photos, and then something that's a little more flexible, typically a zoom, maybe not, but something that's a little more flexible is maybe it's another prime that has like a ridiculously fast autofocus or something like that, whatever the case may be. But having another thing that is easier to shoot with in more scenarios, I can't recommend enough having something like that, because it ends up being really, really worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm imagining once we reach a sports age and recital age, you want that huge freaking zoom, because the iPhone, no matter how good it gets with periscopes, I'm sure it just won't. I don't think it'll catch up to like a huge freaking glass that can zoom in.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that it used to be, even just a handful of years ago, like, a car nerd would say there's no replacement for displacement. Like with cameras, like there's no substitute for big glass, and physics can only go but so far. That being said, what can break physics? Computers can think really fast, and we keep coming back to it. Computational photography really has been incredible in the last few years, and again, it used to be just a few years ago that I would turn to the iPhone for video and little else. Mm-hmm. Then it became I would turn to the iPhone for night and video and little else. And now I genuinely have to think through, in some circumstances, which camera is the right camera for this. Another a great example of this. I've just been going on and on about how wonderful the Micro Four Thirds or any other big camera is in daylight. Yeah. But if I'm in a situation where I want to capture an HDR photo, so I want the clouds and the subject of the picture, then I know one can accomplish this through the magic of editing. Casey cannot accomplish this through the magic of editing. And so if I'm trying to get something like that, then I'm going to turn to the iPhone every time, because it will do what do they call it, exposure bracketing or something like that, where it'll take the bright shot and the dim shot and just meld it all together to become one HDR photo. And so I personally am incapable of doing that in an editing suite, but the iPhone can do it for me. And so sometimes, even if I have the big camera on my shoulder, depending on the shot, I might end up grabbing the iPhone because it genuinely is going to take a better shot.
Yeah, and I think even ProRAW does some of that magic of doing the HDR stuff to some extent. And the 3x lens in daylight it's impressive to me. Like they've come a long way with that. I've never used it before. I've just seen people use it in the past, and it seems pretty decent these days.
It is. I missed for a long time the 2x lens. Like if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose the 3x, because as you said earlier, like you're always going to want more zoom. It's very unusual to want less zoom. Yes. But that being said, I found myself fairly often using the 2x, not lens, but quote unquote lens in the 14 Pro. And what that does is, it takes the center of the 48 megapixel picture, it takes the 12 megapixels in the center, and that's basically effectively a 2x zoom, right?
And it looks great. I've also been blown away with that. Like my cat's doing something adorable, and 3x is too much. 1x is like 2 is just perfect for some of these shots.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, if I had to choose one, I would take the deeper zoom for those occasions where you just absolutely have to have it. But having that 2x available as well as the 3x has been kind of a game changer for me. And I've really been thankful and enjoying having both of those options. And again, like academically, they probably don't take the best shots. Like you should stick with the what they used to call the wide. Now they call like the standard or main.
Yeah, the main lens.
Yeah. You should stick with that where you can. But again, like, dude, if you need to get close, use the 3x. If you need to step back without stepping back, use the 1/2. Use the ultra wide. Like, do what you got to do to take the shot. You're never going to regret having a picture. You will occasionally regret having no picture.
Yeah, I remember when the 12, I had the 12 mini came out. HDR video just blew my mind. Like, I started taking so much more video back when that happened. It's like these videos just look so damn good.
Yeah. The iPhone camera, it's really phenomenal, and that's the thing, is that I'm one of those idiots that upgrades every year. And the reason I do it more than anything else, I mean, part of it is for my job, but a lot of it is because I just want the best camera I can possibly have in my pocket always. And the difference is, again, between the iPhone 10, which at the time was a phenomenal camera, and the 14 in just 4 years. Like it's unreal, the difference between the two. And so I can't stress enough, like having a camera with you always is so powerful and so awesome.
Yeah. And the thing that's been blowing my mind about the phone this year is the outdoor screen brightness. You can actually see the shot so much better than
Yep. And I had a real bad time with my 13 Pro that if it was outside in the summertime for more than like 30 seconds, it dimmed really, really aggressively. And I guess that's like a thermal, problem that it's trying to dim so it doesn't create as much heat. Granted, I didn't get my 14 Pro until late September, but I'm in Central Virginia. Like, it's still pretty hot in late September. And so in the little bit of time that I did use it before it started to cool down, I did not see near as much of a problem in the 14 Pro, which is possibly my favorite change from the 14 Pro, because over the summer, the 13 was just miserable to use outdoors in the summertime. It was so rough.
Yeah. I'll be out in direct sunlight. I'll have like a 10-minute break, and it's super bright. I can read it's like they did it. They finally figured it out, and whenever I get that new watch at some point, that watch will be better in the outdoors as well. It's like I want iPads and like Macs with that, so you work outside in a better way.
Exactly. Yep. Oh goodness. Yeah. So what are you doing for photo management? Given that this is the iPad's Pro show, what are you doing for photo management on the iPad? Because I find, and this is probably a Casey problem, that doing any sort of photo management, particularly with the big camera, but really any photo management, I feel like I cannot do it. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't do it on the iPad, which is probably not true. But what are you doing in terms of photo management? Like, is there a suite of tools that you enjoy or that you recommend for that?
So it's very new to me still, but the Sony camera is USB-C, so I can just hook it up USB-C to the iPad to do the import. I did discover the RAW formats my Sony camera takes is not supported by Mac OS or iPad OS natively. So I have to send those into either Lightroom or Raw Power can like interpret those files and send them out as standard DNGs that I can edit. I primarily edit in Pixelmator Photos, kind of my favorite tool. That's what I tend to get the best results in, I've found. And it's got some machine learning stuff to aid and make stuff look better, but it just I get the best like natural looking edits out of that one. I've tried Lightroom, and Lightroom has so many tools. I just kind of go wild, and the photos end up looking super edited just because you can.
Right. No, that makes sense. I don't know. I need to learn. I need to learn more about it, and I feel like I would like to be able to do more with my iPad, particularly in terms of photo editing, because it's such a natural use case, like having a pencil to like actually like retouch things. It's such an obvious use case for it. But I find that part of this is a lot of this is self-created because I have a very particular way that I like to store my files and process them and so on. But I'd really love to be able to do this more on the go, and it's easier to bring my iPad with me than it is even though they're actually not too different in weight and not too different in size, it's easier to bring an iPad with you than a MacBook Pro. And so I feel like I need to do a better job of figuring out how I can make this work on my iPad alone.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Like I've never really edited photos before I got the 14 Pro and started playing around in preparation of little one, and it's wild. We can do like selectively grabbing a color to make the grass greener. Like you can say like you can like green, make this a little bit greener. Or my cat has a red like rose flower thing on her collar, so that's a fun thing where there's no red in the shot except for that little flower, and I can like touch that up. And so it's been fun, like just learning the ins and outs of what you can do. And then Darkroom, I don't use a bunch, but that has the magic ability of you can edit a live photo and it'll output it as an edited live photo.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it'll retain the live photo data because most of the other apps, they strip that out in the editing process. Right.
That's super cool.
And then for now, it's just iCloud photo library, but I'm taking a lot of raw photos, and some of these are over 100 megabytes. And
yikes.
My 2 terabyte plan is not going to be happy with that, so I need to figure out a strategy. I have a Synology now. after
Oh,
hearing you guys
nice.
chat about those
Uh-huh.
for how many ever years it's been.
Yep.
And I understand why they're awesome. Like, it's a little computer, and as an iPad person, it's like, I've got a little computer I can just remote into anywhere in the world, because the Synology Anywhere thing works like awesome. And I have a little Windows virtual machine for Windows 10, which I guess is when Microsoft stopped charging, I guess, for Windows 10, at least for the one I got.
Yeah, nice.
So I can upload iTunes Match files from the Synology now, which is kind of neat. That's
cool.
that's an iPad limitation. There's no iTunes Match hook-in.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm working at adding like a WebDAV server from the Synology, so I can store my like Dev and Think database there versus iCloud, and
Nice.
so it's a whole new world. The Synology.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about how much I love my Synology, and I still find new uses for it. You know, just this year I was doing different things with it that I'd never done before, and I've had one since 2013 or thereabouts, so it's been like 8-9 years.
Yeah.
I'm looking over at the one that I have that is my primary Synology, because I have a remote Synology that it backs itself up to, because I'm that much of a dweeb. Well, anyway, this primary Synology, it's getting long in the tooth, and I think they've announced that they're not going to give software updates anymore for it, which 10 years on I can kind of understand.
Yeah.
Well, it's an 8-bay Synology, which was given to me, for the record. Like, I didn't spend the money on this, but of course, now that I have it, I don't think I want to go back or go to any smaller, right?
Yeah.
Even though I absolutely could, but I don't much want to. So I'm looking at like, okay, what is the new equivalent of this exact same model? And it's empty. It's like $1,000, $1,500, something like that. And then you got to fill it with some amount of hard drives. Now, maybe I don't need 8 to start out. That's part of the beauty of a Synology, but I need, several, because I have something like, 12 to 15 terabytes of data on there right now. So I need at least enough to handle like 15 terabytes, and it gets expensive real fast. So I'm looking at like a $2,000 or $3,000 purchase, and I just keep kicking that can down the road because I just don't feel like spending $3,000 on storing data.
Yeah.
But then the flip side of that is, one of the literally 5 different places that all of our family photos live, and the primary place that all of those photos live, is just off to my left on that Synology. And so I would be okay if it somehow pooped itself, but because it actually almost did a couple of years back, which was it made for a lot of content on ATP as I undid and figured out a new strategy for everything because of that. But anyways, I'd be okay now if it did poop itself, but I would not be happy. And it would, just like I was saying to you earlier, prepare the house now before you're under duress. It would be great, and I should prepare the Synology or the new Synology now while I am not under duress, rather than when if this one dies and I'm like, oh no, now what? So. But no, I can't say enough good things about having any sort of network attached storage. And a Synology in particular is really great, as you said, because it is a computer. It's not the most powerful computer. It's not the fastest computer, but it is a legitimate computer. And so you can offload a lot of computery things that you maybe don't want to have on your primary computer, even if it's a traditional computer, or even more so on your iPad. Maybe you can't do it. Maybe you don't want to do it on your iPad. Then you have it on the Synology. And there's a lot of things that I can complain about with regard to the Synology. They have the world's worst naming scheme for everything, and they reuse the same names for like wildly different products. It's infuriating, but it is an incredibly robust, incredibly strong ecosystem, and I, as silly as it sounds, I can't imagine my life without one.
Yeah, I had a Drobo Pro a while ago, and I had forgotten the noise of hard drives because it's been many years since I had that hooked up, and I my initial batch of Toshiba hard drives I returned to Amazon and did a bit of research and got quieter hard drives, but they're still they still click. They're still hard drives. So I've relocated the Synology to the basement, and I set up like a second node in our a mesh network, so it's like hooked into that. And I think the speed should be pretty good with it being like a Wi-Fi 6 node thing. But I was getting some complaints about noise. Pretty
understandable. Well, and I tell you what, so my office is also our guest room, and with the door open, it's totally fine in here. But if I close the door, which I will typically do when the kids are at home, we're recording this while they're both at school. With the kids are at home, I'll close the door while I'm recording, and this room gets real hot. Real quick. And that is not enjoyable, particularly in the summertime. And I really genuinely think a lot of that heat is the Synology and the 8 spinning hard drives within it. And it's not quiet. It's not cool. But having, just to do like the elevator pitch for having network attached storage, having effectively unlimited storage is an incredibly powerful thing, because then it's the difference between getting rid of 90% of the raw photos that you shoot and keeping all of the raw photos that you shoot. Now, obviously, there's some caveats in that particular example, but you know what I mean. And having effectively infinite storage is extremely cool, because you don't have to worry, was that picture worth 100 megabytes? Was that video worth 6 gigabytes, or whatever the case may be? Just screw it. Just keep it. Now, you have to back it up, and that's obviously a different animal, because RAID is not a backup. But nevertheless, having effectively unlimited storage makes a lot of things much, much easier. And then on top of that, having an always-on computer makes other things much, much easier, particularly if you're one of those absolutely bananas people that thinks an iPad can be your only computer. So, so there's a lot of to be said for having an always-on computer with a whole bunch of hard drives hanging off of it.
Yeah, and I can finally have my own Plex server. I've always wanted one of those, because I'm a movie geek, and there's a lot of movies that they're still not available digitally. Like there's like the director's edition of Legend by Ridley Scott, which has the Jerry Goldsmith score. You can't find that digitally if you're in America, at least. And so there's a lot of like edge cases like that. It's like, I can finally have these movies that are on disc somewhere and have them available.
Yep. No, it's extremely powerful. Now, good luck ripping that movie if you have, the disc of it. Good luck ripping it on your beloved iPad.
Yes, sir. No, I'll use my wife's MacBook Air for that one. Yes.
Are you recording on an iPad right now? I didn't even ask you.
Yeah, so my setup, I've got the stage manager setup. So you're on my iPad. I've got my notes on an external display, because I'm on the last beta that still had external monitor support. And I capture my audio with a Zoom H6 external recorder. Okay. So my XLR goes into that. And then a line out of audio goes from like a Thunderbolt dock into the Zoom. So I have your audio and a separate track on that. And then I can just pop the SD card from the Zoom into the Thunderbolt dock and get the audio onto my iPad that way. So, yeah.
That is not as miserable as it used to be, but that is still a lot of moving parts, my friend.
Yeah. I've gotten used to the hardware recorder, and it's super rock solid and stable. But I did... back in the day, 2010s, used like the MacBook Pro and Audio Hijack, and know how great having software to do it is. But at least the hardware doesn't crash, which Audio Hijack doesn't seem to crash, but that much.
No, generally not. Yeah. No, but I've had many a recording almost ruined by the computer that's running Audio Hijack crashing. And so my setup is I'm on my MacBook Pro, although I am right now using, for one of the first times, I've only done it a handful of times, what is it, Continuity? What's the thing? No, Universal Control. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Universal Control. So my iPad is, as I'm looking off to my left, sitting literally on top of my clamshelled MacBook Pro. And it is so cool. I don't care if you have multiple iPads or an iPad and a computer or whatever. It is so incredibly well done and so smooth, this thing where you can just drag your cursor off the edge of your screen and suddenly you're controlling a different computer.
Yes.
And I can and it works both ways. Like I was operating with my Mac's trackpad and then I swooped over to my left, as it turns out, and there's the iPad cursor moving about. But if I wanted to, I can reach over to the iPad, and I have it in a Magic Keyboard, and I can swoop off to the right, and suddenly I'm controlling my computer with the what is even happening right now?
Wild.
It's super cool.
I kind of want iPhone support for at least the keyboard, because I'll have my iPhone. I have a MagSafe mount for my Magic Keyboard, so I have a little thing here that comes off my Magic Keyboard, so I can have my phone next to it. I'd love keyboard continuity in that case.
Right. Yep. I totally hear that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I am impressed you're doing all this on an iPad. That is brave. Do you use like Ferrite to edit the whole rigmarole?
Yeah. And Ferrite's like and part of the problem, like initially I had the GarageBand set up for some of my older podcasts, and like this is great. It's got chapter markers, and then Apple decided it's all about music, and it's like
yep.
And it's just like the iPad's kind of the best tool unless I want to invest in Logic. Because Ferrite's it feels like it's custom built for podcasting. It's got the chapter markers. I used to use Levelator on the Mac, and now that's built into Ferrite. Like all the things that I needed, like a bunch of different apps. It's all in one place with Ferrite.
That's super awesome. Yeah, I've been podcasting for almost a decade. I have been doing it professionally for like 4 years now. Not once in my life have I ever edited any show that I've ever been on, or any other show for that matter. And it's not because I'm not unwilling. It's just circumstantially I've never had the occasion to have to do it. But
right.
I think if I were to, I would probably turn to ferrite first, because it just, like you said, it seems like it's a pretty much bespoke solution for doing exactly that sort of a thing. And my understanding is that, I don't remember the person who wrote ferrite or writes ferrite, but my understanding is, I think it's he was working with Jason Snell like a lot when ferrite was brand new, and Jason was like, "Well, what about this?" And then next thing you know, ferrite has it. Okay, well, what about that? And then the next thing you know, ferrite has it. And so,
I think I'm on the beta train, and the next beta that just entered the public feeds is addressing another Jason Snell feedback of playing back at 2x speeds, because he'll do that sometimes for his edits. So, like on the quick edits, he'll play back on Logic at like 2x, and the latest ferrite beta, I guess, can do that. So you'll be able to play back and like do quick edits as you go.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's great doing like the strip silence and like using the pencil, just like boom, 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 get rid of all the Yep. So it's a nice setup with that.
Yeah, I got to give it a try at some point, even just for the fun of it. I really should just give it a shot.
Yeah, and like the templates are very solid. Yeah, just it feels like a great tool, and it is. And then LumaFusion's finally getting multicam support at some point in the next year or so.
Nice.
So that'll be. I used to love doing Final Cut Pro multicam editing, because you're just watching your how many video feeds and just tapping, and that'll be in the LumaFusion updates. So
that's cool. I didn't know that. That's super awesome.
So with photo management, I've got already like 300 RAWs in my library, and I'm growing.
Right.
How do you use iCloud photo library versus the Synology? Like, do you put like your edited ones in the iCloud, or
you don't want to ask this question, because what you want to do is ask this question and do the opposite of what I'm telling you. No, so I was really interested and remain interested in online photo management tools. So this is, and I like to joke with my friends on the Connected podcast that they've murdered all the good ones, which means iCloud photo libraries, its days are coming. But this was Picture Life. It was Everpix was another one.
I loved Everpix.
So good. There was another one, I can't remember the name of it now, but there was another one where basically the idea is you upload all your photos there, and then they will help you not manage them, but it'll be a backup by virtue of not being at your house. They'll surface, it does search, it'll do machine learn, or using AI recognition to like figure out if you want to search for a car, like here's the pictures that have a car in it or whatever. And I loved those, but after having lived through so many of them dying, I knew that I never wanted to trust any online anything as the one true source of pictures for my family, which means I have this completely convoluted and bananas setup that I use with my Synology. And what the short version is, when I take photos using the big camera as an example, I will take the SD card, I'll pop it into my computer, and then I just do it using Finder, which I admit is kind of barbaric, but I just go through with Finder, and I will use Quick Look, and I will just delete the ones that I don't like. And then that'll get me down from, hundreds to a couple of hundred or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll oftentimes do like a second pass and figure out, okay, of these 6 that I went, which one of the 6 is the good one? And then not necessarily a third pass, but maybe simultaneously I'll figure out, okay, because I shoot JPEG and RAW, do I really need RAWs for any of these? And what I've ended up doing is saying to myself, either is there a chance that future Casey is going to want to edit this picture, which almost always is no. But sometimes is yes. Or is there a chance that I want to make this like the size of the side of my house? If I'm going to like blow this up to be like a poster or whatever. And either of those cases, I'll keep the RAW. Or actually, I guess a third case, is this just one of those pictures that I can tell is like a seminal, important family picture? Like I can tell you right now, this one's a keeper. Like this one, not even a keeper. This one's like, I will come back to this photo in future years and look at it again kind of photo. If it passes any one of those 3 tests, then I will keep the RAW. But 95% of them I chuck, because it's just not worth. And mine are only like 30 megs. You said yours are like 100 sometimes.
On the
100
iPhone, they get that big. If you
right. Okay.
On mine around 30 meg for the Sony camera as well. It's a 24 megapixel camera. But the iPhone, some after you're finished editing, some of those like it's over 100 megs. It's like it's wild.
It's bananas. And so. Again, generally I don't keep RAWs. So first thing I do is just figure out, okay, what am I keeping? Next thing I do is I use this really not very good Mac app, but it does the job, called Geotag. And I find that it is very common for me to look up a photo based on where it was taken.
Absolutely.
Like, I know I was at the pumpkin patch. I don't know where, I don't know what time of year. Well, I mean, I know it was fall that I was at the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it was October, if it was September, if it was November, but I know there's a picture of us at the pumpkin patch that I really want. So what I'll typically do is, and we'll get to how in a second, but I will look for a photo by going to a map and looking up the pumpkin patch and looking at all the photos at the pumpkin patch. And so with the big camera, you can put it in a mode where it works in concert with your phone to like geotag stuff, but it's a pain in the butt.
Phone apps for big cameras, they're the worst.
They're the absolute worst.
I could the Sony app, the official app, I could never get to connect. The third-party apps were better than the first-party official app, and like it's just a mess. Like it's just not even worth bothering, I don't think.
No, it's not. But the Olympus app is garbage. But the one thing it does semi-effectively is you can go into the app on your phone and say start tracking, do whatever. You don't have to do anything else. And then at the end, you can connect to the camera's like built-in Wi-Fi network and say, okay, synchronize geotags based on timestamps. You know, okay, I see that the camera took it at such and such a time.
Yeah. The
phone was at such and such a place, merge them. If I know that I'm in a situation where I'm going to be using the big camera a lot, especially if I'm moving around, like I'm at a park or I'm at the state fair or Disney World or something, then I'll put that mode on. But a lot of times I just don't even think about it. I'll just snap a few snaps and call it a day. And so I use Geotag to go through and put the geotag information, you know, the name of the app is Geotag, and I'll put the geotag information into these files. And then at that point, two things happen. Number one, they get imported into Photos for iCloud Photo Library. And that is the way I interact with my photos 95% of the time. But the other thing that happens is I use a bespoke little command line tool that I wrote myself because I'm also an app developer.
Yes.
I use a little tool that's based off a concept that Dr. Drang, who was a guy on the internet, Dr. Drang had a series of Python scripts, or maybe it was just one Python script, but it was a script that will look at photos, look at when they're taken, and rename them so that instead of, P1234556.jpg, it's, year, hyphen, month, hyphen, day, space, hour, hyphen, minute, hyphen, second, .jpg. And so what that does is it makes it super easy to sort them by when they were taken. Because if I'm not trying to find a file by where it was, I'm trying to find a file by when it was.
Yeah.
And so that
data is in the metadata of the file itself. So you're having the script like look at the date creation and matching it.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so based on the date that the photo was taken, rename the file to be such and such file name, and then that script actually dumps it on the Synology. It will move it, or copy it actually.
Yeah.
It'll copy it onto the Synology. And so in the Synology, I have my photo repository. Then I have a series of folders, one per year. Then I have a series of folders in each year, one per month. And then in that each month folder is just hundreds and hundreds of pictures. But they're all named such that if I know I took a picture on October 10th of 2022, it takes me no time to get there. Get to the actual file sitting on the Synology. This is bananas. No human being should do this. This is just what works for me.
Yeah.
Any normal human being, just use iCloud Photo Library like an adult and trust it. It hasn't steered me wrong yet, knock on wood, but just trust it. It'll work fine. It's been great. I wish I had gotten on board with it sooner because it really is excellent, but that's what I do. And again, a lot of this I don't think could easily be done from the iPad, like the renaming, the copying to this. You can copy to the Synology. You can rename, but it would be,
I'll explore
it would be not
shortcuts
fun.
to see how advanced that can get. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be not fun. And that's why I do all my photo processing on the Mac, and I will probably continue to do that. Now, maybe I would take a photo from the Mac to the iPad to like edit using Pixelmator or whatever. But in terms of like the ingestion process, I do pretty much all of it on the Mac. And then with regard to the phone, all the pictures the phone takes, I will go into my iCloud Photo Library. I will export, once a month I do this. I'll export the last month's worth of pictures, run it through the same script, and the script will see, it also does a comparison and says, okay, are these identical photos? Very, very rudimentary comparison based on like a checksum. But anyways, it'll see whether or not these are the same photos and won't, make duplicates of duplicate photos. It'll ignore them, but it will then effectively merge all of the photos that the Synology already had with the new photos coming off my camera, and those all get merged again back onto the Synology. So what that means in summary is that the Synology is my one true source of pictures because that has everything. It has mine, it has my wife's, it has everything. And then that gets backed up to Backblaze two different ways, which is a story in and of itself. It's not worth talking about. It's backed up to Backblaze twice. It's on a physical hard drive that's in the opposite corner of the house. That gets updated every couple of weeks. Then every time I see my parents, who live about an hour away from us, they have a hard drive that I will take and get a duplicate of all the photos on there. So it's 2 Backblaze, 1 that's in the house. I have my Mac downloading all of the photos from iCloud, so that's a 4th copy.
And the Synology is mirrored?
And the Synology's mirrored, you're right. So that's a 5th copy. So if I lose my photos, there's been like a global thermonuclear war. And as silly as it sounds, I will do this until the end of time because of all the things I can lose, I know we haven't talked much about it, but I am devout about having a very particular Plex library. I have very particular files in there in a very particular way, some of which are very difficult to find or rebuild or whatever. But I would lose my Plex library 10 times over and be okay with it before I lose my photos. And so that's why I'm such a psychopath about it, because I thought briefly a couple of years back, I thought I did lose them all. And I swore, like I said earlier, never again. So I go off the deep end about it, and I will make zero apologies for it because I just don't want to lose it.
Yeah. So the iCloud photo library, you're starting, like, it doesn't have everything. And is space going to be a concern, like 2 terabytes or 4 if you're on the thing? Is that?
Yeah, it is going to be a concern. I think I'm sitting at like a terabyte and a half now, something like that. But again, I'm not taking I'm not keeping a lot of RAWs. I don't take a lot of video, which is bad and I need to do better at, but I am taking 4K 60 video, so that gets real big real quick.
Yeah.
I think in the next year or two, I'm going to have to go from 2 terabytes to, I think, like you said, they allow you to pay for 4.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, though, when I start bumping up against 4. Like, I hope at that point that they'll offer 6 or 8.
I hate that you can't just pay Apple more to get more storage. But I guess they have limitations because
I guess. Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do at that point, but that's future Casey's problem.
Yeah. And Synology has these like Moments apps, and like, how have you found those good at all?
I haven't really played with them. It was with they call their like operating system DSM. I think Disk Station Manager is what it stands for. DSM 7 brought with it like a whole new Photos setup, and I haven't really dabbled with it, in part because iCloud Library is working so well for me. I guess that probably would be my answer, come to think of it, is if iCloud Library if I can't use it anymore because I've got too much or what have you, I would probably end up doing the bespoke Synology system, whatever that's called, like Photo Moments or whatever it is. That's probably what I turn to. And
the shared iCloud photo library, we're anticipating to use it just for like little one photos between us, and that's it. Do you have will you guys be using that at all, or is the Synology?
I think so. Yeah. I think we'll definitely be using that because poor Erin, like, she doesn't often refer back to old pictures, but her library is kind of we kind of treat it as ephemeral, and my library is like the one true library.
Yeah.
And so that means if she ever wants a picture from more than about a month ago, then she has to turn to me to get it, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think she particularly minds either, but it would be so much nicer if she could just swipe up on her iPhone and go looking in past years. And so
the photo widgets too are very special.
Also, very, very, very good point. And so I think what I plan to do, I haven't really spoken to Erin about this, but what I plan to do is basically treat 99% of the photos that I'm taking as ours, because usually they are. It's usually of the 4 of us or the dog or what have you.
Yeah.
And I think my default shooting mode will be, this is for the shared photo library, and then I will occasionally take a picture just for myself, or maybe move it from one to the other or what have you. But I think by default, I'm just going to use shared photo library, so this way she finally has easy access to all this stuff. And I plan to move, the last 10 years, well, we've known each other for 17 years now, so I plan to move the last 17 years of pictures basically into the shared photo library because there's no reason not to.
And I'm imagining it's smart enough to not include screenshots or images you save from Safari.
I'm not sure. I haven't really played with it any because I am in a very mixed mode. Like, even when I was running the beta on my phone, I had betas nowhere else. And so I didn't want to mess about with like ruining things for my Mac or my iPad or what have you. So I don't plan to do anything with shared photo library until at the very least when it's all publicly released, including on the Mac. But I might even let it chill for like a month just to see, have everyone else figure out what the issues are, and then I'll dive in. But we'll see what happens.
And do you do anything with the photos as far as, I know John, your co-host on ATP, is big into the books. and he had a big conundrum about Apple stop printing them.
Yeah.
Do you do anything like calendars or books?
No, not really. Occasionally, I have a couple of times printed like something like day one for money, you can have day one print a book of your day one entries, which is both text and pictures and whatnot. Those are okay, but it's not really what you're talking about. I want to do the books. I want to be able to have a book like John has of like the family vacations and this and that and the other thing. I just don't have the patience for it. Like I wish I did, but I just don't. And I know myself enough to know that even though I'm not a perfectionist, I would want to tweak it into Kingdom Come. And in fact, I don't know how John ever finishes his projects because he is a perfectionist. but yeah, I don't think I don't have the energy for it or the patience, to be honest with you, even though I wish I did.
Yeah. And any photo gear you think would be worth getting, like tripods or like, do you have a favorite camera bag for your big camera?
Not really. I don't actually typically use a camera bag as awful as that sounds, because it's just a camera and a lens. Like it's the camera, the lens that's on it, and one spare, and that's all I really have to worry about. I definitely recommend a proper tripod, which are only like $20-$30 on Amazon. I like having, I can't reach it from where I'm sitting, but I like having one of those like Gorilla Pod things where it's like a bunch of bendy things you can like wrap around like a fence post. And as long as your camera isn't, I keep saying big camera, but as long as it isn't like a 15-pound like monstrosity, they're strong enough to hold up a big camera. I will say, even though I could make a compelling argument about how I'm wrong, I really like having a GoPro. This is less relevant for you at this stage, but like we spent a lot of time at the pool over the summer, and having a camera that you really that you know is designed to get wet. Like, yes, the iPhone should be fine, and I've literally had an iPhone in my pocket at a water park, and it is fine, but it's nice to have like a solution where you know that this is designed to get wet. It's designed to get dropped. And once the kids are active, having a GoPro in a lot of ways is a really nice tool to have in your tool chest. It does really good time lapses. It's a pretty good camera if you need a still camera. It's something that you could tie to something, you could mount to something, you can get a little floaty thing to buoy it to.
It could be on your chest as you're in the ocean playing with the kids.
Yep, exactly right. And I mean, obviously these won't be cinema caliber shots in most cases. Like you can use a GoPro for professional use. Like one of my favorite TV shows was Top Gear, and last I heard they use GoPros a lot. But anyways, you could use it professionally. But typically, when you or I would be using it, these videos, these pictures are not going to be great. But they'll be capturing something that you may not have been able to capture at all otherwise, or unwilling to. Like, I'm not really willing to bring my iPhone into the pool. Like, I know I can, but it's not something I want to do. But I don't give a crap about the GoPro. I'll absolutely bring that in the pool and not think twice about it. And so I do advise thinking about some sort. I mean, there's other action cameras on the market. GoPro is, the Xerox, if you will. Having some sort of action camera, I recommend. I did in the past recommend having a gimbal. The new action mode on the iPhone 14, though, is really, really good. So a gimbal is something you put your phone or you can put a full camera in it, and it's like sort of a steady cam, if you will. So as you're running about, it's counteracting the motion of what you're doing, and so it makes for the video to be considerably more stable instead of boinging all around. It's something that's like kind of more static. I do have a gimbal. I think it's by DJI, the same people who do the GoPro. Or no, the DJI is the drone people.
The drone people, yeah.
Anyways, I think it's a DJI gimbal. And I find, honestly, that it's just not worth like the work of putting the phone in and like trying to get it all squared away and set up and whatnot. I don't regret having bought it, but I don't use it barely ever. And again, I would have recommended it more years ago because like when the kids are in the Power Wheels, like I would run alongside them and film, and it was really neat to have the gimbal. But now I would absolutely just throw on action mode. Even though I'm not getting full 4K, I think you're getting like 2.3 or 2.7K or whatever it is, something like that. But it's sufficient, and it's so much easier to just do that than it is to bust out like a gimbal or what have you. Or I mean, honestly, at this point, I might even consider using the GoPro because it has its own equivalent to action mode. And that might even be better, to be honest with you. I actually just got a new GoPro. I broke the old one. Turns out GoPros are designed to get wet as long as you have the appropriate doors, latch or cases on the outside. Well, one of the doors of my old GoPro broke, and so I got like a crappy Amazon knockoff, and turns out that was a poor choice because I brought it into the water in the pool, and I guess it wasn't sealed properly, and the GoPro broke. So I just got a new GoPro, and I need to try. So I need to try action mode or whatever they call it, stabilization mode on that new GoPro because I've been told it's very, very good there as well.
Yeah, I had GoPro years ago, like the GoPro 2. That was when I lived back in Hawaii, and like I had one GoPro, and like GoPro sent some out to me for free. They're a great company, and that was the era of 3D being huge. So I actually had the 3D enclosure and the cable between the two. So I have some like 3D videos from that era, which is fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's super wild. No, the GoPro stuff is really solid, and I really. If you were to go down that road, I really do recommend it. I really think they're really great products. But again, like I could make an argument. Well, we have action mode and we have a waterproof camera. Like who cares? Or waterproof phone. Like who cares? But for me, I like having.
I'm the same. I have a big heavy phone that I don't want to get all wet and damaged.
Exactly.
Exactly.
No, but in terms of other photography stuff, I do. A friend of ours was briefly a professional photographer, and again, I can't reach it from where I'm sitting, but. I don't remember the term for it, but what it is, she had this thing that she gave me. She had an extra. It's a little circle that's like perfectly white. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is if you're indoors at nighttime, most cameras will let you do a white balance where what you do is you take a picture of, or you tell the camera like, okay, I'm taking a picture of something that's pure white. And I want you to tweak whatever color settings you need to tweak such that this doesn't look yellow.
Yeah.
It looks white. And so that, when I remember, that's really convenient when I'm using the big camera indoors at night, which again is very rare these days. It's really nice to be able to say, okay, set the white balance now, and this way I don't need to go back and edit all of them and change all of the yellow to be white, after the fact. And that's really nice. I forget the name of this thing. I'm sure it has some name for it, but it's very cheap as far as I'm aware, and it is nice to have. And that, if I had a camera bag, I would put that in there for sure.
Very cool. Yeah. The first photo I took of our little one with the big camera was like in evening hours in the hospital, and I really do appreciate how good denoising and like it transformed this photo, which was okay to like a great photo. Like it's amazing what editing suites can do. Lightroom, is that what you use, or do you use the Photos app for editing?
No, I typically use either Previews, Pixelmator, or Photos. Like Previews is actually pretty good at doing white balance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good at anything else, but I'll use that. Again, if I'm retouching something, I'll do it in Pixelmator. If I'm trying to like take out a person from a stranger from a photo or something like that, I'll do that in Pixelmator.
Yeah, the magic eraser is wild. I've taken out like power lines and it looks like it was never there, and it's like some huge areas that just like wow. It's
incredible. When it works incredibly well, and when it fails pretty miserably. But like a lot of times, if I have a shot, particularly like a posed portrait of like the family or something like that, and I don't know, maybe I have like a humongous pimple on my forehead or something like that. Like magic eraser's awesome at that, and I'll take that bad boy right out. It's like never happened.
Yeah.
But no, again, I need to get better. I want to do better with editing both on the desktop and on mobile. I've heard Visco, I think is very popular and has like a bunch of filters that I've heard is very good. I do own Pixelmator, and the little bits I've played with it, it's excellent. So I need to do better about dabbling with that and trying it out.
Yeah, Pixelmator Photo, just on the phone, it's really impressive, and it will kill your battery doing intensive raw photo editing on your iPhone, but
I can imagine
it's impressive what you can do just like all on board without even offloading.
Absolutely.
So, any final words of wisdom going into fatherhood?
I would say, everything. The good news is, if you don't like what's happening, it's about to change. The bad news is, if you like what's happening, it's about to change. But just be flexible. Be flexible with your wife. Be flexible with yourself. Be flexible with your kid. Find a rhythm as best you can. You'll find that in my personal opinion, there's two kinds of parents. There's the regimented parents and the free-for-all parents. We happen to be the regimented parents. We would try to get the kids to sleep at the same time, try to have them nap at the same time. In my personal opinion, that works really well because they, especially when they're young, they really like a cadence or a rhythm. And then when they're a little bit older, they like a routine. Again, my little brother has 3 kids, and they're free-for-all parents. They eat when they want to eat, and they sleep when they want to sleep, and that seems to work for them, but it's not my rhythm, not my bag. I would say when you're comfortable, don't worry about doing anything in solidarity. Like early on when Declan came home, I told myself, well, if Aaron's up, I'm up. And that lasted about 3 days. We realized very quickly that while the thought was very kind of me being up in solidarity with Aaron, in reality, somebody better be sleeping whenever it's possible. One of you should be sleeping. Obviously it's not always possible, but whenever you can, one of you should be sleeping. And if both of you need to be up, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't be up and piddling on your phone just in solidarity. Like, if you're up, you're either doing baby stuff or you're helping with wife stuff, or your butt should be asleep. Yeah. And I would say definitely don't worry about anything like that. And then finally, just again, be present and be present and capture what you can. I mean, don't go bananas. You don't have to capture every waking moment of this kid's life, even though that is your inclination as a first-time dad. But be present and capture what you can, because between the two, you'll either be present and have the memory, or you'll have captured it and have the memory that way. But one way or another, you're going to want these moments, and you'll lose them before you realize it. And I don't mean that to be like morose or sad or anything. It's just time goes quick. It's easy to get into the rhythm of things and not realize that, this was the first time that the kid is shown an aversion to a solid food. Like everything we put in front of them, they loved, and suddenly freaking carrots they hate for some reason, or whatever the case may be. You just be present and try to, however you choose to do it, try to take notes, be that in your mind, be that in day one, be that via photography. One way or another, try to take notes on what's happening and do what you can to remember it, because it goes by so damn fast. And obviously be there for your wife. Like, this is earth shattering for both of you, but for her in many, many, many more ways. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to be the leader. Sometimes some women prefer for you to take charge for a little while or step up, or maybe you do need to be the leader, maybe you don't. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just be there for her and be there and help her navigate through this as well, because unfortunately neither of you know what you're doing. You're not going to want to listen to the grandparents who are just telling you you're idiots for worrying. So just do your best and be there for each other, and don't lose sight of each other. Like, again, I love my kids to death, but I don't know. I in some ways I feel like I self-describe as a husband first and a dad second, which maybe that's healthy, maybe that's not. But no, I think it's extremely important not to lose sight of the two of you, and you will. You absolutely will.
But try to do like a date night kind of thing.
I mean, if such a thing is possible, if such a thing is possible, absolutely. And you make the best of it, and don't lose sight of each other, because again, this is kind of war for the next 6 months. And I'm not trying to be like morose or defeatist or anything, but infants suck, dude. Like, they're not fun. And so if you can survive the next few months, and you can, and you will, I promise it gets easier. And it sometimes it'll get a little harder, but the overall trend will be northward, if you will. And it does and will get easier. So just be there for each other. Don't lose sight that you worked very hard, whether you had troubles having a kid or not. You worked very hard to bring this baby into the world. She more than you, but both of you.
Yes.
So do what you can not to lose sight of that fact.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And the God designing infants to need to eat every 3 hours, that was that's just very cruel of
it's very, very cruel. Very, very cruel indeed. But again, like, that gets better, and that gets better quickly. Like, you'd be surprised how quick you go from 3 hours being the feed, and then 4, and then 5. It's so funny too. I don't remember now what it is, but I think it was talking with the pediatrician maybe that we said, Declan slept for 4 hours last night, or whatever the number was. So he had a full night's sleep. I'm sorry, what now? Like, a full night is 8 hours, dude. What are you talking about? No. For a baby, a full night's sleep, again, I don't remember the number, but for a baby, a full night's sleep is, or sleeping through the night, maybe that's what it was. Sleeping through the night is like 4+ hours or something like that. And as an adult, you're like, are you freaking kidding me with this? But you'd be surprised how quick you go from every 3 hours to every 4 to, oh my God, that's considered sleeping through the night, to every 5, every 6, et cetera, et cetera.
The metrics are so funny, because like I look at the heart rate, it's like 150 to 200 is normal. It's like, if I was doing that would not be good.
You'd be in the hospital.
And exactly, the respiratory rate is also a lot higher. It's like, it's just interesting, because with Apple Watch we are now aware of our own metrics in the way we were.
Yep. No, it's so true.
Any questions I haven't asked that I should before we wrap it up?
Oh, geez. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think I don't think it's as much a question, but another piece of recommendation that just slipped into my mind is, don't be afraid to ask for help, and be specific about it. A lot of times, well-meaning people, be it neighbors or family or whatever, will be like, oh, how can I help? And you're just like, oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. But really, make your neighbors or your family or whatever do your freaking laundry. Make them wash the dishes.
Yeah.
No shame, my dude.
Yeah.
No shame. Have the help, because once the baby's like 6 months, then you're like a regular old dad to everyone else in your world, and they don't care anymore.
Right.
So take the help. Have them do laundry. Have them bring dinner. Have them DoorDash dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like you had said to me, your parents are not close, like geographically close. That is.
Yeah.
Have them DoorDash deliver you a freaking dinner or whatever. If maybe
Yeah.
they have already, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But take the help. No shame. Take the help. If somebody wants to come over and do laundry and let you or your wife sleep, take the help. Take the help. That is what you need to be doing right now. Take the help.
Thank you, Casey. I will take the help when offered. I will certainly do that. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I know we went over what I expected, but this was a great chat. I just had it was
well, I appreciate it. I'm very glad that you had me on. And actually, I'm kind of selfishly glad that your kid popped out early, because otherwise we would have gotten in fights about whether or not the iPad is actually a computer. So
Yes.
instead we got to talk about baby stuff,
Yes.
which I'm always here for. So so thank you to the little one for easing what would have been a very tense conversation between the two of us and making it much easier. But no, thank you for having me on, and please obviously reach out if you have questions. I'm happy to help as best I can, even though my memory is crap and my kids are older now. But I'm happy to answer what I can. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's you've had a kid once every 4 years, and this is the 4th year.
No! Don't you be jinxing me. We're done.
Yeah.
Nope.
So
No,
my little one will
we're
be
good.
about 4 years older than your littlest one. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Oh goodness, I can't imagine going to baby phase.
I know, right?
Oh man. Oh goodness.
So
Better you than me, my friend.
So ATP and Analog, any other places people should check?
Yeah. So if you like hearing me talk about nerdy Apple stuff, then you'll enjoy the Accidental Tech Podcast with my friends John Syracuse and Marco Arment. If you like hearing me talk about more of this kind of stuff, actually, you can listen to Analog with my friend Mike Hurley. That's at Relay FM. And then Twitter, Instagram, all those things. My website, it's all Casey Liss. So CaseyLiss.com, Casey Liss on Twitter, Casey Liss on Instagram, all the things. It's typically Casey Liss. So if you want to see, I don't typically put up pictures of my kids once they reached about 3 or 4 years old. Occasionally I will, but very rarely now. But you can check out, Instagram to see my kids, who thankfully look like spitting images of their mother. They're very lucky. And then if you wanted to put up pictures of your kids but maybe hide their faces, I have an app called Peekaview. Oh, excuse me, that's the other app. I got myself confused on my own apps. I have an app called MaskerAid, which is MaskerAid. That lets you use machine learning to automatically put emoji over people's faces, which is really convenient once the kids are not a mush anymore. And then Peekaview, which I accidentally brought up earlier, is let's say you wanted to give your cranky toddler your phone to look at pictures, but you don't want them deleting things, or perhaps a client or a coworker or whatever. Peekaview is basically a read-only photo gallery, so you can check that out as well. Those are 2 apps on the iOS App Store, and you can find all these links at my website at CaseyLiss.com.
Very cool. And I think I'll actually start to have uses for those apps now that you've...
Exactly. Turns out. No, I'm very excited for you guys.
It's fun when dads have like ideas for apps that like, oh, I now understand why this would actually be a thing, because we're also like, I don't think I want my kids' photos on the internet widely. Like they're just privately shared between friends. And stuff.
Exactly right. So I mean, obviously everyone's your mileage may vary. There's it's just that's the way I wanted to treat it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm sorry I ran you way over the time you had asked for. That's my fault. But hopefully there's something good in here somewhere. So I appreciate the time.
No, that's great. Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's my discussion with Casey, all about being a brand new father. My thanks again to Casey for his time recording this episode, and my thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. And support this podcast over at patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. And with that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.